Queen Vela of the Crixian Empire reclined on her crystalline throne, mandibles clicking with amusement as the human diplomat finished his presentation on interspecies cooperation. The delegation from Earth stood uncomfortably in the grand hall of her hive ship, aware they were being mocked but unsure why. "Ambassador Tom," Queen Vela finally spoke, her translator converting her clicks and hisses into English. "Your species' reproductive inefficiency is charming. So primitive." Tom Miller, lead diplomat for the United Earth Coalition, maintained his professional composure despite the insult. "I'm afraid I don't understand, Your Majesty." 9 months to produce a single offspring? The Queen's compound eyes glittered with derision. And only one, occasionally two? How has your species not gone extinct? My latest clutch numbered 8,000. The human delegation shifted awkwardly. This first diplomatic meeting with the technologically advanced Crixians was going poorly, and Earth desperately needed allies against the encroaching Morden collective. "Our reproductive methods have served us well enough," Tom replied diplomatically. "We focus on quality over quantity." This sent the Queen into another fit of clicking laughter. The royal guards joined in, their armored exoskeletons rattling with mirth. "Quality!" Queen Vela exclaimed. "Your fragile bodies require decades to mature. My warriors emerge fully formed, ready to conquer within a lunar cycle." Tom's science officer, Dr. Kate Bennett, stepped forward. "With respect, Your Majesty, human reproduction involves complex genetic recombination that allows for rapid adaptation and evolution. Our diversity is our strength." The Queen's laughter ceased abruptly. Bold words from a species that can barely terraform its own moon. "Your diversity hasn't helped you against the Morden, has it?" She was right. The Morden had already claimed 3 human colonies in the past year. Earth needed this alliance. "Perhaps we could arrange a cultural exchange," Tom suggested. "Our scientists would be honored to learn from your advanced biological systems, and we could share our unique perspectives." Queen Vela studied him with sudden interest. "A cultural exchange?" "Yes, that might prove entertaining. I've heard rumors about human males, that they possess unusual genetic compatibility." Tom glanced nervously at Dr. Bennett, who subtly shook her head in warning. "I will allow 1 human to remain as a cultural attaché," the Queen declared. "You, Ambassador. The rest may return to your ship." "Your Majesty, These are my terms," she interrupted. 1 human stays, or there will be no alliance." Hours later, after heated communications with Earth Command, Tom found himself alone in luxurious but alien quarters within the Queen's personal sector of the hive ship. The diplomatic team had reluctantly departed, with Dr. Bennett promising to monitor his vital signs remotely through his implant. "Ambassador." Queen Vela's voice startled him as she entered his chamber without warning. She had shed her ceremonial armor, her iridescent exoskeleton gleaming in the dim light. Tom noticed she was smaller without the imposing royal garments, almost human-sized. Her compound eyes studied him intensely. "I wish to understand human reproduction," she said bluntly. "Not the biology. I've studied that. I mean the experience. Why do you invest so much in so few offspring?" Tom realized with sudden clarity that this was the real diplomatic mission. The fate of Earth's alliance might depend on his ability to explain the most fundamental human experiences to an alien queen who laid eggs by the thousand. "Human reproduction is about connection," Tom explained, choosing his words carefully. "It's biological, yes, but also emotional and sometimes spiritual." Queen Vela circled him with predatory grace. "Spiritual? You attribute mysticism to a chemical process?" "Not mysticism," Tom clarified. "Meaning. Humans find meaning in creating life together." The Queen's antennae twitched skeptically. "Your species wastes tremendous resources raising individual offspring. On Crix, only royals receive personal attention. The rest serve the hive from emergence." Tom thought of his sister's newborn back on Earth. How his entire family had gathered to welcome 1 tiny human. How different from the Crixian way. "May I ask," he ventured, "how Crixian royalty is produced?" Queen Vela paused her pacing. "Royal eggs require genetic material from another royal house. It prevents deterioration of the bloodline. She clicked her mandibles dismissively. But such unions are purely political. I have never met my genetic consort. On Earth, even political marriages usually involve meeting, Tom said with a small smile. Your humor is noted, Ambassador. Something in her compound eyes shifted. You find our methods cold. Different, he corrected. Not better or worse, just different. Days passed, and their conversations continued between formal negotiations. Tom learned about the complex Crixian hive structure while explaining human family dynamics. The Queen seemed particularly fascinated by human pair bonding. You choose one mate? For life? She asked incredulously during their 7th meeting. Some do. Others have multiple partners over time. Some have multiple partners simultaneously with consent. There are many models, Tom explained. And you, Ambassador? Do you have a mate? The personal question caught him off guard. I did. She died 3 years ago. Morden attack on New Sydney Colony. The Queen's antennae drooped slightly. The first show of empathy he'd witnessed. The Morden are merciless. This is why you seek alliance. Yes, Tom admitted. But also to learn. Humanity believes different species working together creates something greater than the sum of its parts. An alarm suddenly blared through the hive ship. Queen Vela hissed something his translator couldn't catch and rushed to a communication panel on the wall. Morden scout ships, she informed him grimly. They've tracked your diplomatic vessel. Prepare yourself, human. You may witness Crixian warfare sooner than anticipated. The battle was swift and brutal. From a protected observation deck, Tom watched in awe as Crixian fighters swarmed the Morden scouts with perfect coordination. Queen Vela commanded from her war chamber, her mind linked directly to her warriors through some biotechnological connection he couldn't comprehend. When it was over, she found him still at the viewport, staring at the debris field. You fought to protect our ship, he said quietly. Thank you. Your presence makes us targets, she replied, but without the hostility he expected. Yet I find your perspective valuable. That night, she invited him to witness something no outsider had ever seen. The royal spawning chambers. As they stood before the massive translucent eggs, Tom realized he was being offered unprecedented trust. Our genetic structure is highly adaptable, Queen Vela explained. It's how we've conquered so many worlds. We absorb useful traits. Tom watched the embryonic forms pulsing within the eggs, noticing something odd about their developing shapes. Something almost human. Adaptable. How? He asked, a strange suspicion forming. The Queen's compound eyes fixed on him. Ambassador Tom, there's something you should know about Crixian royalty and genetic compatibility with other species. Genetic compatibility? Tom repeated, his diplomatic training failing to mask his shock. Are you suggesting nothing has happened yet? Queen Vela interrupted, mandibles clicking in what he now recognized as embarrassment. But our scientists have discovered something unprecedented in our species' history. Human DNA appears uniquely compatible with royal Crixian genetic material. Tom stared at the pulsating eggs, comprehension dawning. These aren't mine? No, she assured him quickly. These are from my previous spawning cycle. But our biology is responsive. Proximity to compatible genetic material can trigger changes in unfertilized royal eggs. Dr. Bennett's warnings suddenly made terrifying sense. Earth Command had suspected something like this might be possible, which explained their reluctance to leave him behind. So, my presence alone is causing changes in your reproductive system? Tom struggled to maintain diplomatic composure. Yes. Queen Vela's antennae twitched nervously. It appears the microbiome you humans constantly shed contains genetic information our royal physiology finds valuable. The potential for a true hybrid spawn is theoretically possible. Tom took a careful step back. I think I should return to Earth immediately. You misunderstand, Queen Vela said. This discovery could revolutionize both our species. A royal, brood with human adaptability could create a new alliance, one bound by blood. On Earth, we generally discuss reproduction before it happens, Tom said stiffly. The Queen's compound eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture he'd come to recognize as thoughtfulness. A fair criticism. I should have consulted you when our scientists first detected the compatibility. A Crixian guard burst into the chamber, chittering urgently. The Queen hissed a response before turning back to Tom. The Morden have launched a full attack on your colony at Proxima Centauri, she said gravely. Your Earth Command requests immediate assistance under our new treaty. Tom felt cold dread settle in his stomach. Proxima Centauri housed over 3 million human colonists. Without Crixian help, they would be slaughtered. Will you honor the alliance? He asked. Queen Vela's exoskeleton shifted colors, darkening to battle-ready crimson. The treaty is signed. We will fight. She paused, her voice softening. But Ambassador, understand what this means. Crixian warriors who shed ichor in battle for another species forge a blood bond that cannot be broken. My people will see humans as true allies after this, not merely diplomatic partners. Tom understood the unspoken implication. The genetic compatibility between them would become known. Cultural and biological barriers would begin to dissolve. Evolution itself would take an unprecedented turn. If we survive, he said quietly. If we survive, she agreed. The battle for Proxima Centauri lasted 17 days. Tom remained aboard the Queen's hive ship, acting as liaison between Crixian forces and human defenders. He watched in awe as Crixian warriors sacrificed themselves by the thousands to protect human settlements, their hive-mind coordination giving them advantages the individualistic Morden couldn't counter. When victory finally came, both species had paid a heavy price. The colonists had survived, but Earth now owed the Crixian Empire a blood debt. As the wounded Queen returned to her private chambers, Tom was summoned. He found her molting, shedding her battle-damaged exoskeleton for fresh growth beneath. It was a vulnerable state he knew no non-Crixian had ever been permitted to witness. We are changed, she said simply, her voice lacking its usual imperial tone. Both my people and yours, and I am changed in ways I cannot yet comprehend. Tom saw the subtle differences in her new emerging form, slightly more humanoid features beginning to manifest. The genetic exchange had already begun, triggered by stress, proximity, and something neither species fully understood. So am I, he admitted, feeling the weight of evolutionary history shifting around them. 3 months passed since the Battle of Proxima Centauri. The alliance between Earth and the Crixian Empire had strengthened, with mixed crews now common on patrol vessels along the Morden border. But the most remarkable changes were happening aboard Queen Vela's hive ship. Tom stood beside the Queen, in her private laboratory as Crixian scientists hovered anxiously around a special incubation chamber. Inside, a single egg pulsed with an internal light unlike any other royal egg Tom had seen. It should have hatched by now, Queen Vela said, her normally imperious tone edged with concern. Royal eggs mature in exactly 64 days. We're now at 91. Dr. Kate Bennett, who had returned as part of an official scientific exchange, studied the readings on her tablet. Human gestation is much longer. If there's significant genetic hybridization, the development timeline might be extended. The Queen's new exoskeleton had fully hardened, revealing subtle but undeniable changes to her physiology. Her formerly insectoid features had softened, compound eyes now showing hints of iris and pupil. Her mandibles had receded slightly, and her voice produced sounds her translator no longer needed to convert. My advisors are concerned, Vela admitted when the scientists left them alone. No queen has ever produced a solitary egg. They fear I'm becoming too human. Tom had grown accustomed to these private conversations. What had begun as diplomatic necessity had evolved into something neither of them had vocabulary to describe. Are you concerned? He asked carefully. I should be, she replied, resting a clawed hand against the incubation chamber. But I find myself hopeful. Curious. She turned to him, her eyes catching the light in an almost human way. Your kind values individuality. Perhaps there is strength in that approach I couldn't see before. An alarm suddenly blared through the laboratory. The egg's outer shell had begun to crack. Call the scientists back, Vela ordered, but Tom could hear excitement beneath her command. The hatching process took hours, Nothing like the synchronized mass emergence of traditional Crixian broods. When the shell finally split open, even the Crixian scientists fell silent in astonishment. The hybrid offspring was neither fully human nor fully Crixian. It had a soft exoskeleton with a distinctly humanoid face, 5-fingered hands with slight claws, and eyes that were compound at the edges but with clear human-like pupils at the centers. A female, Dr. Bennett whispered, checking her readings, and only one. The tiny hybrid creature blinked up at Queen Vela, then at Tom, showing none of the immediate battle readiness of normal Crixian hatchlings. Instead, she reached out a delicate hand toward both of them. Queen Vela made a sound Tom had never heard before, something between a hiss and a sob. Without warning, she gathered the hybrid child into her arms, another shocking departure from Crixian protocol where even royal offspring were handled only by specialized caretakers. "She's beautiful," Vela said simply. News of the hybrid princess spread quickly through both human and Crixian societies. Reactions were mixed. Fear and outrage from traditionalists on both sides, cautious optimism from progressives. Religious leaders debated the spiritual implications, while scientists clamored for study opportunities. The Morden, however, saw opportunity in the chaos. Their spies had infiltrated both human and Crixian communication networks. To them, the hybrid represented not unity, but weakness. Evidence that both species were losing their evolutionary focus. 6 weeks after the hatching, as the hybrid princess, now named Luna, in a compromise between human and Crixian naming traditions, continued to develop at an accelerated but still human-like pace, the Morden launched a targeted strike. Their objective wasn't territorial gain, but specific assassination, the elimination of what their own prophets had begun calling the evolutionary bridge. 3 stealth destroyers breached the hive ship's defenses, deploying elite shock troops directly into the royal quarters. Tom was with Luna when the attack came, teaching her human nursery rhymes while Queen Vela attended a war council. When the first explosions rocked the ship, his diplomatic training gave way to pure protective instinct. "Emergency Protocol Zeta," he shouted into his communicator as he scooped up the child. Luna, already showing intelligence far beyond her weeks, remained silent as Tom activated the hidden escape passage Dr. Bennett had insisted on installing. As royal guards fell fighting the Morden assassins outside, Tom carried the future of 2 species toward an uncertain escape. Tom raced through the narrow emergency passage. Luna clutched tightly against his chest. The hybrid child remained unnervingly calm, her compound human eyes tracking the emergency lights with analytical focus no ordinary infant would possess. "Hold on, little one," Tom whispered, as the ship shuddered from another impact. His implant buzzed with an incoming signal. "Tom, where are you?" Queen Vela's voice carried notes of both imperial command and personal panic, a duality that reflected her changing nature. "Evacuation Route B with Luna," he responded tersely. Morden forces breached the royal quarters. They were specifically targeting her. "Make for Docking Bay 7, the Queen ordered. "I've dispatched my personal guard to escort you to the emergency shuttle. I'll meet you at the rendezvous point." The passage opened into a maintenance corridor where 2 Crixian royal guards waited. Their exoskeletons bore the purple markings of the Queen's personal protectors. "Ambassador," the larger guard clicked, extending armored limbs. "The princess must be transferred to proper protection." Tom hesitated. Something felt wrong. The guard's antennae weren't moving in the subtle communication patterns he'd learned to recognize. "Authentication code," Tom demanded, backing away slightly. The guards exchanged glances. "There is no time for—" Tom turned and ran, Luna still secured against him. Behind him, the false guards shed their disguises, revealing the gray-skinned Morden assassins beneath. Plasma bolts scorched the wall where he'd stood seconds before. "Imposters in Sector 8, Tom shouted into his communicator. "Morden with Crixian disguise tech." He rounded a corner and nearly collided with Dr. Bennett and a squad of genuine Crixian warriors. "This way!" Kate yelled, covering their retreat with surprisingly skilled plasma fire. "The Queen opened a direct path to the shuttle bay." They fought their way through 3 more Morden ambushes. The hybrid princess observed it all with unsettling attentiveness, occasionally touching Tom's face with her tiny clawed hand as if to reassure him. When they finally reached the shuttle bay, Queen Vela was already there, her ceremonial armor scorched and dented from combat. "Give her to me," she demanded, extending her arms for Luna. Tom passed the child over, watching as the Queen's fierce exterior momentarily softened. Luna chirped a sound halfway between Crixian communication clicks and human babbling, touching her mother's face just as she had touched Tom's. "We've lost the hive ship," Vela announced grimly to the assembled guards and officials. "The Morden targeted our life support systems. Evacuation is underway, but we must get the princess to safety immediately." The small shuttle broke free of the massive hive ship just as secondary explosions began rippling through its lower sections. Through the viewport, Tom watched thousands of escape pods jettisoning in all directions. The coordinated evacuation protocols of a species evolved for efficient collective action. "Where are we going?" Tom asked as the shuttle accelerated toward the jump point. "Earth," Queen Vela replied, surprising everyone. "It's the last place they'll expect. The Morden believe humans too weak to protect her. Earth isn't prepared for a Crixian royal visit," Dr. Bennett warned. "Especially not with her." She nodded toward Luna, who was now examining her own semi-translucent fingers with fascination. "Earth will adapt," the Queen stated, "as I have adapted. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks in the small diplomatic shuttle. During that time, Luna developed at an astonishing rate, already beginning to form simple words in both human English and Crixian click speech. Her exoskeleton remained soft and flexible like human skin, but provided protection similar to Crixian armor. Her intelligence was unprecedented, combining human creativity with Crixian precision. What surprised Tom most, however, was watching Queen Vela's transformation into something unprecedented in Crixian history. A mother who cared for an individual child rather than a genetic dynasty. "On Crix, royalty never raised their own offspring," she explained one night as she gently rocked Luna to sleep, a human gesture she'd adopted without instruction. "They are tended by specialized drones until maturity." "Do you regret the change?" Tom asked quietly. Vela's newly humanized eyes met his. "I have lived for 2 centuries as a queen who spawned thousands without knowing any of them. Now I am mother to one, and I know her completely." She looked down at the sleeping hybrid. "How could I regret discovering something my species never knew existed?" As their shuttle entered Earth's solar system, long-range sensors detected a Morden battle fleet in pursuit. The assassination attempt had escalated into something far more dangerous, a full military offensive aimed at preventing the evolutionary bridge Luna represented. "They fear her," Tom realized aloud as they watched the tactical display. "Not just what she is, but what she represents. The possibility that separate species can become something new together. Fear drives the Morden," Queen Vela agreed. "Their entire society is built on genetic purity. Luna threatens their fundamental beliefs." As Earth's defense fleet moved to intercept the Morden pursuers, Tom understood they had triggered something that would reshape the galaxy. The hybrid child sleeping peacefully despite the chaos around her wasn't just the product of an unexpected biological compatibility. She was living proof that evolution itself had more paths than either humans or Crixians had imagined. Earth was not prepared for the arrival of a Crixian queen, much less one carrying a hybrid child that challenged every biological certainty. The emergency landing at the United Earth Coalition headquarters in Geneva set off a diplomatic firestorm. "This breaks at least 17 quarantine protocols," General Harris barked as armed guards surrounded the shuttle. "Not to mention the xenobiological implications." Tom stepped forward as the shuttle ramp descended. "General, may I present Queen Vela of the Crixian Empire and Princess Luna, who is under the joint protection of both our species by treaty." A stunned silence fell as the Queen emerged, Luna cradled in her arms. The assembled officials and scientists had expected a traditional Crixian royal, imposing, insectoid, alien. Instead, they saw a being in evolutionary flux, her features a striking blend of her original form and unmistakably human characteristics. But it was Luna who truly captured their attention. Now 9 weeks old with the development of a human toddler, she regarded the crowd with unnerving intelligence, her eyes shifting between compound and human aspects as she processed different visual information. "She's beautiful," whispered Dr. Eliza Morgan, Earth's leading xenobiologist, breaking protocol to step forward. "May I?" Queen Vela hesitated before nodding once. Dr. Morgan approached slowly, scanner in hand. Luna spoke her first public words then, a perfect blend of English and Crixian clicks that needed no translation. "Hello, Earthkin," the assembled humans gasped collectively. General Harris muttered something about security implications, while Dr. Morgan's scientific objectivity crumbled into naked wonder. The Morden fleet arrived 3 days later, bypassing Earth's outer defense systems with disturbing ease. Their demand was simple and non-negotiable: surrender the hybrid abomination or face planetary bombardment. "They're bluffing," General Harris insisted during the emergency council meeting. "Even the Morden wouldn't risk destroying an entire populated planet." "You don't understand their psychology," Queen Vela countered, her voice carrying new emotional depths that made even the hardened military leaders listen. To the Morden, Luna represents an evolutionary corruption that threatens their core belief in separate, pure development paths for all species. They would rather sterilize this entire system than allow such contamination to spread. Luna, now speaking in complete sentences and absorbing information at an exponential rate, sat quietly between Tom and Vela. When she finally spoke, the council chamber fell silent. "I can communicate with them," she said simply. "Not as human, not as Crixian, but as something they've never encountered. Their evolutionary stagnation makes them predictable to me." The council erupted in objections. Send a child, even an unprecedented hybrid one, to negotiate with planet killers? Impossible. Yet 48 hours later, with Morden weapons primed and Earth's defenses faltering, Luna stood before a secure communication array, flanked by her biological parents, one a human diplomat, the other a Crixian queen who had once mocked human reproduction as primitive. The Morden Supreme Commander appeared on screen, his gray, hairless features contorted with disgust. "The abomination speaks for Earth? This confirms our assessment. Your planet must be cleansed." Luna stepped forward, her small form somehow commanding. "You fear me because you cannot categorize me," she said in perfect Morden language, shocking even the commander. "But I am not pollution. I am possibility." What followed was unlike any negotiation in recorded history. Luna spoke to the Morden commander not with diplomatic platitudes, but with evolutionary insights that cut to the core of their species' ancient anxieties. She exposed with devastating accuracy how their obsession with genetic purity had led to subtle deterioration, problems their scientists had hidden from their own leadership. "Your refusal to adapt is killing you slowly," she concluded. "Not all change is corruption. Some change is necessary survival." The Morden commander's face had shifted from disgust to disturbed fascination. "What are you?" he finally asked. Luna smiled, a human expression on a face that blended two worlds. "I am the next step. For all of us." When the transmission ended, the Morden fleet did not attack. They maintained position for 72 tense hours before retreating beyond the solar system's edge. "What did you do?" Tom asked his daughter in private afterward. "I showed him their future," Luna said simply. "And I offered an alternative." Queen Vela, listening nearby, clicked her mandibles in a sound that had evolved into something like human laughter. "She has your diplomatic skills, Tom." Tom looked between them. The alien queen who had once laughed at human reproduction, and the impossible child who had just prevented interstellar war. His life had become the most unlikely first contact scenario in human history. "I think," he said carefully, "she has something entirely her own." As Luna grew over the following months, developing faster than human children but more individually than Crixian offspring, both species found themselves adapting around her existence. Human geneticists and Crixian royal scientists collaborated on understanding the implications, while cultural exchanges expanded exponentially. The universe, it seemed, had more plans for evolutionary cooperation than either species had imagined. And it had all begun because an alien queen had laughed at human reproduction, before experiencing its transformative power firsthand. 5 years passed. A heartbeat in Crixian terms, a significant portion of childhood in human measure. For Luna, it represented an unprecedented developmental journey as the first of her kind. The Geneva compound had evolved from an emergency diplomatic headquarters into a thriving center for interspecies cooperation. At its heart stood the Evolutionary Bridge Academy, where hundreds of human and Crixian children learned together under Luna's increasingly influential guidance. Tom watched from the observation deck as his daughter led today's assembly. Now physically, equivalent to a human teenager though only 5 years old, Luna had grown into her role as living symbol of cooperation. Her form had stabilized into something uniquely balanced, the strength and sensory advantages of her Crixian heritage blended with human emotional intelligence and adaptability. "She's addressing the Rigelian delegation today," Queen Vela noted, joining him at the viewport. Their first official contact beyond their system. The Queen herself had continued to change, though more slowly than Luna. Her exoskeleton had softened further, allowing for more expressive facial movements. She maintained her connection to the Crixian hive mind, but had developed a distinct individual identity that had initially scandalized her species' traditionalists. "The Rigelians requested her specifically," Tom replied. "Word has spread." Below, they watched as the crystalline representatives of the Rigelian consortium entered the Academy's central chamber. Luna greeted them not with human handshakes or Crixian antenna touches, but with a gesture uniquely her own, a subtle harmonic hum that resonated with the Rigelians' communication frequencies. "Remarkable," Vela murmured. She created that greeting after studying their biology for just 3 days. "She sees connections the rest of us miss," Tom said with quiet pride. Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Bennett's arrival. Now, Earth's ambassador to the Crixian Empire, Kate had become the scientific authority on cross-species adaptation. "The results are confirmed," she announced without preamble. "The Morden genome is showing the early signs of adaptive change we predicted. Their scientists are calling it the Luna effect, spontaneous genetic flexibility activated after centuries of enforced stagnation." Tom exchanged a meaningful glance with Vela. 5 years ago, the Morden had been willing to destroy Earth to prevent exactly this outcome. Now their own biology was responding to Luna's example, demonstrating that evolution itself preferred adaptation over isolation. "And the new eggs?" Tom asked carefully. Queen Vela's expression softened into what he now recognized as happiness. 17 have shown the compatibility markers. When they hatch, Luna will have siblings, different from her, but connected by the same bridge between our species. The implications were profound. What had begun as a diplomatic accident was becoming a biological movement across multiple worlds. Luna concluded her meeting with the Rigelians and joined her parents in the observation deck. Despite her accelerated growth and extraordinary intelligence, there remained something wonderfully childlike in how she embraced them both. "The Rigelians have requested joining the Evolutionary Compact," she reported. "That makes 11 species now." 11 species, willing to explore controlled genetic exchange, Dr. Bennett clarified, still sounding amazed by the concept. 5 years ago, the mere suggestion would have been considered evolutionary heresy. Luna's compound human eyes twinkled with amusement. Sometimes the best ideas begin as heresies. Later that evening, as a rare thunderstorm swept across Geneva, Tom found Luna in her private garden, a carefully maintained ecosystem blending plants from Earth, Crix, and 3 other Alliance worlds. She stood with her face tilted upward, letting the rain touch her skin in a gesture that seemed profoundly human. "The Morden delegation arrives tomorrow," Tom said, joining her beneath the downpour. "Are you nervous?" Luna considered the question with characteristically thoughtful precision. "Not nervous, cautious. They've accepted the possibility of change. But centuries of biological prejudice don't disappear overnight." "You were right about them," Tom acknowledged. "Their fear wasn't hatred. It was terror of extinction. Once, you showed them adaptation was possible without loss of identity. Everything changed. Everything is still changing," Luna corrected gently, "including you and Mother." Tom couldn't deny it. His years of close contact with Crixian biology had triggered subtle changes in his own physiology. Enhanced sensory perception, improved cellular regeneration. Nothing as dramatic as Vela's transformation, but significant nonetheless. "Does it trouble you?" Luna asked perceptively. Becoming something different than you were? Tom thought about the question seriously. I was already changed the moment I met your mother. Not biologically, but fundamentally. All meaningful contact changes us. Your existence just made that truth visible on a genetic level. Luna smiled, the expression carrying echoes of both her parents. The Rigelians have a concept in their language. The closest translation is beautiful corruption. The idea that perfection comes not from purity, but from meaningful contamination. Thunder rolled overhead as the storm intensified, but neither moved to seek shelter. The universe is entering a new evolutionary phase, Luna continued, her voice blending with the rainfall. Not competition between isolated species, but collaboration across genetic lines. The Crixians understood collective action within a species. Humans understood emotional connection between individuals. Together, we're discovering something greater. Deliberate co-evolution. Tom looked at his extraordinary daughter, the being who existed because an alien queen had once laughed at human reproduction, only to discover its transformative potential firsthand. Luna represented not just the genetic bridge between two species, but a philosophical bridge between competing evolutionary strategies. Your mother once thought human reproduction was inefficient, Tom said with a smile. One offspring taking months to develop, years to mature. Luna's laughter chimed like crystal in the rain, and now she understands that sometimes the longest paths lead to the most remarkable destinations. As the storm began to clear, revealing a sky where Earth ships and Crixian vessels traveled together toward distant stars, Luna stood between human and Crixian heritage, the first of many bridges spanning the evolutionary divisions of a universe, discovering that separation had always been an illusion. The alien queen had indeed laughed at human reproduction. Then she got knocked up and changed the galaxy forever. The end.